Glenville, Ohio. Glenville is an eastern neighborhood in the city of Cleveland that was annexed into the city in 1905. It is just a short drive from downtown on Superior or Sinclair that leads to the heart of this community, the Glenville Hall of Fame, located at East 105th and St. Clair. The Hall of Fame that you see now provides a glimpse of the neighborhood's glorious past and famous inhabitants. Glenville grew up in the early 1900s. From 1900 to 1930, the population of Glenville increased from 4,792 people to a peak of 31,512. People were drawn to the community's business, shopping, and religious centers. In 1950, the population of African Americans was 0.3%. However, the racial makeup dramatically changed and quickly. By 1970, that percentage was now over 98% African American. The Huff Riot of 1966, located near Glenville, provides the backdrop of the 1967 election for the mayor of Cleveland. Carl Stokes, an African American lawyer and politician, was supported by many in the African American community, as well as supported by many white business leaders of Cleveland.
You can trace these so-called riots back every time to unmet social needs, to the untended increasing blight and decay of the core area, to the problem of joblessness and homelessness, of the not just being poor, but the kind of way of being poor that today it is not like it was once years ago, so that they were surrounded by their own poverty and had no standards with which to compare. But today to be poor is like to be in a cage in which you're in prison, but you can look out and you can see the freedom and the realization of the kinds of things that being an American has come to mean.
Carl Stokes beat Seth Chase Taft, grandson of former President William Howard Taft, and on November 7, 1967, was elected mayor of Cleveland, the 8th largest city in the United States, and elected in a predominantly white city. Hopes were high for the man downtown. It is during this time that our story unfolds, the Glenville Shooting of July 23rd through the 28th of 1968.
Mr. Stokes, if you were given the chance to become mayor of Cleveland, what lessons have you drawn from the riots this year in Boston, Buffalo, Chicago, Cincinnati, Detroit, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, New Haven, Newark, and Tampa, which you would avoid to avoid the repetition of the same unfortunate happenings in Cleveland?
Sir, I don't know why you left out Huff in Cleveland. I can learn better lessons from what happens to me at home than I can from what happens around the country.
On July 23, 1967, two cars with 4 white police officers each pulled down Lakeview Road and positioned themselves to view the apartment at 12312 Auburndale. This apartment was home of Fred Ahmad Evans, the leader of an armed black militant group. The unmarked police cars sat inside of the apartment on the corner of Moulton and Lakeview and Auburndale and 124th Street. Police accounts show that at 7:50, Councilman Forbes and others arrived at Evans' home and tried to, quote, calm things down. They left at 8:05 believing trouble could be avoided. Around 8:15, a city-owned tow truck pulled over to a 1958 Cadillac on Beulah that had sat vacant for several weeks. William McMullen stepped out in his city-issued uniform and began his job. At the same time, 2 cars arrived and Tim Blackman entered Evans' home at 12312 Auburndale. Moments later, Evans and 15 to 20 other men carrying loaded weapons ran out of the apartment along Auburndale toward both surveillance cars. Seconds later, shots rang out in the night air as McMullen was hit 3 times in the back. It was unclear who shot first, but Now bullets were flying up and down Lakeview Drive in every direction. The first death of 7 occurred at 8:30. Henry Perryman, a minister at a church on Superior Avenue, was on his way to Akron to calm things down after several nights of racial tension there, when he heard the account on the radio of what was happening on Lakeview Drive. He rushed home to see several police shooting towards his house as snipers returned fire from the second floor of his home. Toward midnight, police stormed Perryman's house, and within seconds the house erupted in flames. Fighting raged that night in 3 general locations: around the tow truck on Beulah, at Lakeside Tavern, and at 2 homes located at 1395 and 1391 Lakeview. At Lakeview Tavern, Patrolman Willard Wolf and Lieutenant Leroy Jones were killed by sniper fire. Patrolman Louis Golanka was killed at the home on 1395 Lakeview. 3 followers of Evans lay dead in the neighborhood: Leroy Mansfield Williams, Sidney Taylor Curtis, and Bernard Donald, as well as 2 civilians, Henry Orange and James E. Chapman, who died helping the police. Fred Evans eventually surrendered that evening to police at 12:24 a.m., and when asked by a policeman, "Why did you start all this?" according to the police, he replied, "You police have bothered us way too long." The next day, Mayor Stokes announced that a total of 22 casualties had taken place around the Lakeview area. And yet the riots in Glenville had just begun.
The urban renewal program that has went through the ghetto left vacant lots and boarded up houses as it travels on down to build every view of skating rinks and left people angry. The basic mobility of the Negro in the ghetto is from a smaller ghetto to a larger ghetto, simply because nobody is aware or nobody seems to care about the problem in the ghetto.
Now it is your turn. In this introduction film, it cannot and should not explain all of the events that took place in Glenville on July 28, 1968. But it does shed light on a chapter of Cleveland and national politics and history that is often overlooked. Your job is to go to clevelandmemory.org/Gville and begin to research either the cause and events of the Glenville Riots or the Glenville Riots and its effects. At this site, you will have access to Carl Stokes' personal accounts of the event in his book, Promise of Power, a Political Autobiography. You will also have access to Shootout in Cleveland, the federal report on the events there in Glenville, as well as primary images and other readings. You will create a PowerPoint slideshow to explain and visually show this event in Cleveland history. Good luck.